Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Tiffany.
To some, we could be called career wizards.
And to others, sometimes we seem like therapists. However, we definitely are not.
But for you, we are the co hosts of the Career Boosters podcast.
Clients about this a lot, especially those that are looking to make a pivot of any degree. And I like to be really clear, our career is no longer a ladder. And I like to think of it much more as a portfolio, and nothing is wasted when it comes to your work life.
Hello and welcome to the Career Boosters podcast, season 2, episode 32. We are, I think, a couple away from 70 episodes of our podcast, which is super cool. In the last several months, we have been talking a lot around networking, relationship building, and the importance of stepping out of our comfort zone when it comes to trying to connect with people and trying to learn from other people. Well, in this week's episode, we have a very special guest all the way from Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. Katie O'Malley, or owner of Encourage Coaching, reached out to us in September of 2024, talking about how she would be a great fit for our podcast, and she would like to be a guest. Well, Katie and I had a conversation over Zoom, and voila, here we are, May 29th, 2025, having a conversation about relationship building, leadership, coaching, MBA students, and I'm sure so much more. Katie took the step of what we would call a cold email, never knowing if someone is going to respond or even read it, and now look where we are. You sure won't get what you won't ask for. And Katie's willingness to be uncomfortable, reach out, has led her to be a guest on our show today. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for MBA students to know that you never know what could happen from a simple email or a simple connection. So, Katie, thanks so much for joining us on the show. And the first question we have is if you can just tell us about your career journey so far.
Absolutely. Paul, Tiffany, thank you so much for having me. And I am just delighted to be here and connect with you and your audience. My career journey, my gosh, I describe myself as a bit of a career nomad, but there is a thread that pulls through the entirety of my career, and that is one rooted in the driver or the motivator of altruism and really wanting to make a difference in the world, have a positive impact on others and in the communities that I touch. And when I was in school in the early 2000s, I was a political science major, thought that politics was going to be the way that I contributed to creating meaningful change in my life, and was lucky enough, it was serendipitous enough that I graduated in 2004, which in the States was an election year in our country, had the opportunity to work on one of the coordinated campaigns for, at the time, Senator John Kerry, as he was running for president against George W. Bush. And I always tell folks, until I became a small business owner nearly 30 years later, that was the hardest I had ever worked in my career, to at the end, when the outcome was what it was, to not have a job, to not have health insurance, to not have any job prospects, and realized that while this may be an area I'm passionate about, I was also passionate about security and stability in my own life, and made the transition into the nonprofit sector, moved out to New York City, spent about 3 years working for an organization called the Innocence Project, doing fundraising and development work. And while I knew the work that I was doing truly was contributing to our ability to help exonerate folks who had been wrongfully convicted using DNA evidence that wasn't available at the time of their conviction, and setting them up for, my gosh, success and reintegration into society after being behind bars for 20, 30, 40 years, knew that the money that I was raising made a difference, but was feeling a sense of dissatisfaction, disengagement, couldn't quite put my finger on it, and just assumed it's hard to live in New York City on any salary, much less a nonprofit salary. And so moved home to Chicago, continued working in the nonprofit sector in fundraising and development for the AIDS Foundation of Chicago. And after about 3.5, 4 years, started to have that same feeling, and just chalked it up to compensation and salary. And had I visited with a career coach or career counselor, they would have said, this isn't the thing that really drives you. So can we investigate something else that's going on here that's driving that sense of disengagement and dissatisfaction? Did not do that, and instead transitioned into commercial real estate. And my goodness, I can't think of a 180-degree pivot that was more exact than nonprofit into commercial real estate. And on the very first day, I knew it was a mismatch, right? In terms of values alignment, my strengths and talents, getting rewarded and recognized for who I was without having to shapeshift, coming into work every day. And over the course of 3 years, that really took a toll on my mental health and well-being. And in 2012, as a result of that experience of, when our feelings and thoughts do not match our behaviors, it creates a crisis in our mental health. And so ended up taking a medical leave of absence from work for my mental health, which in 2012 was basically unheard of. We were barely talking about mental health at all, unless we were stigmatizing it, and definitely weren't talking about an employer's responsibility to their employees around mental health and well-being. And it was during that medical leave where I went through some treatment and recovery programs, healing programs, a whole lot of therapy. I realized, holy cow, this isn't a Katie O'Malley centric issue. I am not the only person in the world having a crisis of my identity and my career, and these two things not matching up. And that's when I decided that I wanted to go back to school and become a therapist and help people at the intersection of mental health and work. And so ended up going to graduate school at 30 at DePaul University in the evenings and on the weekends while I was still working in commercial real estate to keep that funding and livelihood going, and came to learn pretty early on in those graduate studies that insurance companies in America aren't super keen to cover therapy sessions about work because work is not a mental health diagnosis. And so what I ended up doing, Paul and Tiffany, was finishing the degree. So I have my master's degree in counseling, but instead of getting licensed as a counselor and therapist, decided to get credentialed as a coach instead, so I can help folks in the way that I really wanted to help them. And then spent the next 10 years working in higher education and career and leadership development offices at DePaul University, the University of Texas at Austin, and then the University of Chicago Booth School of Business with MBA students. Obviously, this meeting that altruism need and aligning very well with that motivation. But I'm sure, as you both can appreciate, being at just an exceptional, outstanding institution, it is a very small niche and group of folks that can access an education like that, much less all the bells and whistles that come along with it. So in 2018, established Encourage Coaching, built a tiny little simple static website on Wix, got an LLC, and just ran an experiment. If I build this, will anyone come? Is this something that is needed in the marketplace? And it turns out that it was. And over the next 4 years, just organically built a really strong foundation of my coaching practice for career and leadership development, then often going into the micro to small businesses where my leadership development clients worked to do learning and development and culture-based engagements with them. And in 2022, I was working full-time at the university, 9 to 5, seeing private clients 5 to 9. And when we were at the very height of the pandemic and the Great Resignation, what else am I going to do? This is the perfect time. I'm stuck in my house. The options are Netflix and snuggling with my pups on the couch at night, or helping people. Let me go ahead and help people. But as we started coming out of the pandemic, I realized I couldn't be preaching work-life balance to my clients and students and not practicing it myself. And 2022 was the year I turned 40, and I said, if I'm not going to bet on myself now, when am I going to do it? And that was the year I went all in on the coaching practice, resigned my full-time role at Chicago Booth, And wouldn't you know what you can do for a small business when you can dedicate 40 to 50 hours a week to it? And just instead of accepting clients that are coming your way, investing in not just enhancing the experiences of the clients that you have, but reaching out to be able to do networking and connection building like this. And I have to say, since 2022, I have been the most professionally satisfied and financially rewarded as I've been in my entire career. And just so happy that this journey has brought me here today to be with you all. Was that responsive?
That was fabulous.
Okay.
What an engaging and interesting journey that I know Paul and I can see ourselves in different places, or at least certainly giant Venn diagram overlaps. And I think we could pick on all parts of that. But what I want to highlight or offer to you is what I heard was a really interesting power of the but. And I say that ironically because if you know me or anybody who's been listening, I'm taking improv classes. So my students know that I do improv, which is hella uncomfortable and I'm not really great at it. But the base of improv is yes and, right?
Mhm,
And it is a lot in leadership and great. But what I heard, which was really cool, was your ability to go through all of your stages and go, it's close, but it's
mhm,
got all these pieces, but. And
mhm.
how often do we ignore that little like intuition, gut feeling of this should be the thing, right? This should fill me, but it's
Mhm.
not. And the power of like following that but and how that has woven you across, which is fascinating.
Oh, thank you
It
for that. Yeah.
yeah.
And I talk to my clients about this a lot, especially those that are looking to make a pivot of any degree. And I like to be really clear, our career is no longer a ladder.
Oh,
And I like to think of it much more as a portfolio, and nothing is wasted when it comes to your work life. What I learned on the campaign trail served me in nonprofit. What I learned in nonprofit, shockingly, was very helpful to me in commercial real estate. And the same from commercial real estate to higher ed to small business ownership. Nothing is wasted if we don't let it be. And so those skills that you've developed in one area or one field, to bring them to the next. And you might even be seen as an innovator if you don't let
yeah.
those go.
Have you experienced this? So I know I have it. I think I'm going to speak a little bit for Paul. How do you work with clients? And I'm going to talk about that 25 to 35-year-old, probably who would typically be an MBA student, that sort of segment, where we often find that we really actually want to find the thing that doesn't have any buts. And the
Mhm.
like and paralysis that is created by trying to find the exact X on the map that has no buts, nothing wrong with it, and make that leap versus what you just said of doing this piece here and that serves me for that piece, and but that's not quite right, so it serves me here. How do you help people make that mental switch?
Yeah, it's really hard because I think we've been socialized to believe there is one perfect person for us romantically, there's one perfect path for us professionally, and it's just simply not true. There's too many possibilities in all of these arenas, and so it's trying to find the best overall match and recognizing that work is not there to fill all of our needs and all of our wants and all of our desires, right? In the same way, one romantic partner, we can't put that kind of pressure on someone. We can't put that kind of pressure on ourselves in our career either. So, finding the non negotiables for yourself, which when I'm working with clients, I'm like, you get three. That's what you get. Three non negotiables that you have to have either as a function of your role or a cultural element of the workplace. But if you go looking for more than three, you are going to be on the search forever, because in the same way there's no unicorn employer, there is no unicorn candidate either, and really wanting to just optimize for the things that matter most to you. And it can't be everything, because if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. And I think also the last piece of that is the elements that are the non-negotiables for you in work. The other pieces that might not get filled or met through your career, how can you get those met outside of work? Because it is just one dimension of our lives. And so for me, what I realize now looking back is yes, it was about altruism still when I established Encourage Coaching, but it was also the place where I was able to have my need for autonomy, agency, creativity met in a way that I wasn't getting at Chicago Booth in the role that I held, right? And so that's been part of the reason too. I was able to discover this whole piece of being an entrepreneur, small business owner was never on my life's bingo card. But there was something missing, and it turned out that sense of agency, autonomy, and creativity was it. And that's what the business fulfills for me now.
That's so cool. You know, I love how you put it. There's like these three non-negotiables, right? Like we always want to seek out the things that will really drive us, and I think the three of us really being driven by altruism is a beautiful connection point. But I think that, you know, we had a guest, I believe it was our last guest. She talked about work-life harmony instead of work-life balance, and the harmony of how all of these things work together, right? And yes, we can have these. You know, I want to work hard, I want to help people met through work, but we can also have that met through volunteering, or we could have that met through other opportunities as well. So I think that's such a cool point. I'm curious how you heard about us or our Career Boosters podcast, and what thought you know you had to reach out and poke us with a little bit of a cold email to try and you know, make that connection. How did that come up? What was that process like for you?
So, the story I'm going to tell you might burst the bubble and the legend of this cold email, but I want to take us back to 2021. I'm scrolling on Facebook, and I see an acquaintance slash friend from high school. Her name's Angela Lewis. And she had posted, "Does anyone want to be on a podcast?" And I thought, how rad. This woman is starting her own podcast. She just started her own public relations firm, raising my hand. Yes, Angela, I will be on your podcast. I've never done this before, but I have the gift of gab, and I think I could be really good at this. And she wrote back, she's like, "Oh no, not for my podcast. Part of my public relations firm business model is pitching professionals to be on other people's podcasts." And so we started working together in 2021, and had a whole slew of opportunities. Needed to take a break because I was still at the university full time, but then re-engaged her last fall. So September 2024, I'm like, I'm ready to get back on the podcast tour train. And she's like, "All right, let's get going. What's new in your business? What's changed? Updated bio, website, give me all the stuff." So it's actually Angela who was the one who found you all and pitched me for your podcast. And then I have my brilliant, amazing head of client services, Jane of all trades, Allison Felici, who then goes through the process of answering all of the emails, interview questions. And so I share this to say, yes, it is taking, just like you said, taking that risk, sending that cold email, but also saying, you know what, I can't do it all on my own. I need help. I can't have the exposure and the growth and be engaged in communications 24/7 unless I'm not going to have work-life harmony. I need to hire folks to help me, because solopreneurship works to a certain point. But after that, if you want to keep growing, asking for help is the way to go.
I love that. And so now what I heard was a yes and. Yes, and how do I do this differently? Yes, and how do I outsource stuff that doesn't take away from my authenticity and actually allows me to share it in a broader perspective, which I think is really cool. If we put aside some of that outsourcing, there's got to be, you talk about having a gift of the gab. If we, and connection points, I mean, the three of us only met just a few minutes ago all together, but the gelling and the ability to just connect really quickly and authentically. What advice do you have in that space? Because it's a space that so many people struggle with, whether it is a cold call, whether it's a networking event, that connection on that first time, that first moment. How do you work through that?
So I think there's two pieces to that. There's overcoming the anticipatory anxiety of doing something outside of your comfort zone. And for anyone who is listening, what the research shows is anticipatory anxiety. So the thing that you're feeling that worry and that nervousness about before engaging in the activity is always going to be worse and heavier than engaging in the activity itself. And so if you can remind yourself of that, the anxiety truly dissipates like a roller coaster as soon as you take the action. So my perspective is that action is always the best antidote to anxiety. Let's try, let's iterate, let's see what's going to happen. If it doesn't work out, at minimum, we've learned something, right? But after that piece, when it comes to engaging with somebody new, my guess is I'm going to see both of your heads nod when I say this, since you are helping professionals as well. I do have a gift of gab, but the reason for that is because I'm such an exceptional listener. And it makes it really easy for me to not have to worry about what I'm going to say about myself, but focus on the other person and what I'm able to learn about them, glean from them, get them to maybe have a light bulb moment and recognize about themselves. And that's what people remember. I think we move through networking and sales or business development, whatever you'd like to call it, about how am I going to give this tell in a way that is compelling. And I say the most compelling thing that you can do is just listen to the person on the other side. And in that transaction, these days, I think giving someone else the respect and the dignity of your full attention is one of the best things that you can give. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm networking, I have nothing to offer this person, I don't have anything to give. In this day and age, your attention, which in this billion-dollar attention economy is being stolen up from us every second without our authorization, to be able to give your full attention to somebody else and really listen to them is going to leave more of an impression than anything you can tell them about your product, service, business, or who you are.
The greatest gift you can give is the space for them to just be who they are and listen to who they are, right? And I think us as coaches, we are like literally trained to sit here and actively listen to people talk and just be there for someone in a space. And I like to talk about being empathetic, but being empathetic in a way of empathy is not living in another person's shoes. It's taking my shoes and putting them beside you and listening to you and just being there for them, right? And I think allowing them the space and time to share is so beautiful. And you talked about being a coach. It's listening and it's about helping people take action. Well, welcome to what the three of us do all the time, which is so cool. I'd love to, we only have about 5 minutes left or so. So I want to make sure that we touch on leadership. You talk a lot about education and leadership and things like that. What makes a great leader, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the foundational component for great leadership or a great leader is self-awareness. Anyone who is not willing to dig deep, figure out where they're awesome, where they need a little help, where they need a lot of help, they're never really going to be able to lead another person, a team, an organization, because I truly believe until we can lead ourselves, we can't lead anybody else. And it's actually pretty irresponsible.
That is such a leading self before leading others. Is a space that I sit in as well, and that can be an easy sell for some and a hard sell for others. I really appreciate that that's what you surfaced.
Yeah.
Because we've got a little bit of a crunch for time, I think we could have this conversation for a good long while. And to your point, may this be the first of a few conversations that we
Yes.
have. But why don't we get to a lightning round and see if we can get 3 quick questions, 3 gut answers. Sound good?
Ready.
Ready?
Let's do it.
Excellent. Okay, first question. What part of your career story has given you the biggest boost?
The biggest boost was being invited to deliver a TEDx talk after coming off the stage from a Women in Tech conference.
Oh, we need to talk. TEDx is next on my list. That's an aside. Okay, what do you wish you'd learned sooner?
That who I am is perfect just the way that it is.
Yes. Service or altruism is something that is so important to Paul and I. So we are always really curious to hear how service is going to show up for you in the coming week.
Yeah, in the coming week, it's showing up in a couple ways. So I run a group coaching session every day for folks who are struggling to find work, whether they were former clients, prospective clients, every day, 5 to 6 p.m., Monday through Thursday. And then on Fridays, we do job searching together. It's completely free. Just people need community right now. They need to know they are not alone, and have someone who has some knowledge in the area to give them good, solid support while they're engaging in the job search process.
Yes, you're right. There's such a need right now. And I love the word you used, community, in that. Paul, do you have a random question top of mind to round us out here?
You betcha. Katie, I will second that we will have you back on. And I think that we could have amazing conversations about our backgrounds, but also how we love to help people and how we love to encourage the world to learn more about themselves and then share that. So, but my question comes to you. We just heard a cool fact. Katie has done a TEDx talk. What was the coolest part about that talk?
Oh my gosh. So it hasn't happened yet. It's
Oh,
happening at
okay.
the
So
end of
preparing.
June.
What is the
I am in the
preparation?
preparations
Yeah.
process.
What is that?
And
What is the preparation process like then? That's my new question.
yes. So the preparation process started in January by submitting an abstract, getting feedback on that abstract, making tweaks, then submitting an outline, getting feedback, making tweaks, writing the script, getting feedback, making tweaks, and then the first virtual dress rehearsal was 2 weeks ago. I had to cut about 3 minutes because gift of gab. Made made those tweaks, and now I'm in the process of, in the morning when I wake up, I say all of the words. I do the talk in the evening before I go to bed, deliver all of the words, say the talk, because you have to do it without any notes, any help, any teleprompter. And then I've been lucky enough, I put out an ask on LinkedIn. So back to, if you don't ask, you're never going to get what you want. Virtual dress rehearsals are fine. There's nothing like doing it in person. And so put out an ask on Facebook to see if anyone had office space, a team that might want to hear the talk. And I am going to be doing 2 in-person dress rehearsals in Chicago as a result of that. One for friends and family, and another at McDonald's for their Women in Technology Employee Resource Group. And that final dress rehearsal will come 3 days before I deliver the talk on June 30th. And the talk is called, I think you too will appreciate this, The Attention We Give, Lessons from Listening for a Living.
Please forward us the link when it is
As
posted.
soon as it is available, I will be
Please do.
kindly spamming everybody's social media inboxes with the performance. Yes.
Spam away. I know both of us would love to watch it, but we would also love to promote that for you. We've got a weekly newsletter that goes out to a bunch of students. We'd be happy to include that in a bunch of spaces. So please do.
Thank you so much.
Katie, I feel like this was a teaser. I feel like this was a let's meet someone really new and cool, where we assume that there's overlaps between the three of us, where we've now confirmed there's solid overlaps, but there's also so much uniqueness between the three of us that I think works really well together. And so thank you so much for sharing your uniqueness, your skill of, and we didn't get far into this, but just living intuitively. I heard you just listen to yourself, understand yourself, own yourself, and then listen to the gut that has kind of led you along the way, which is given such a beautiful journey. And we hope to hear more of it. Thank you for sharing this little piece of it, for reaching out, for being the type of human that is looking to make ripples in all sorts of places. And thanks for making a ripple right here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for taking a chance on a complete stranger from a different country. And I can't wait for our conversations to come.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, key takeaways are always so hard to keep to just key takeaways. I think the whole thing is. However, I really appreciated her thoughts around anticipatory anxiety And I've got my own personal link to, because there's a lot of space around anticipatory grief. So if you've ever been in sort of that sort of space, that's where I was linking to in my own personal life. But there is this space where you're thinking about the thing to come is actually worse than doing the thing to come, and how often we get so stuck up here thinking about the thing to come. And I actually really appreciated that the research, there's numbers, data, stats, research behind that's worse. So if you can tell yourself that and try to get yourself quicker into action, how much easier it might seem. So that's a really key term actually for me that I'm going to chew on for a bit.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
And as someone who faces anticipatory anxiety on a daily basis, I cannot tell you how real that is. So, there are many things that I walked away with this conversation from. One, we need to talk more to some people like that, right? Because I think that at the end of the day, the ability to just say, like, we're here to listen, we're here to be in service, like our communities are going to be better because of that. And I think that's really wonderful. And we're thousands of miles, thousands of kilometers away from each other, which is so cool. The one that really stood out to me is until we can lead ourselves, we cannot lead others. When I think about MBA students, they come in with this sense of, I'm going to manage people, I'm going to lead people. And you wonder how important self-reflection is, the ability to understand oneself is. And before you can lead anybody, you need to understand what that looks like. And that was very powerful to me. We've all experienced great leaders, but we've all experienced leaders that maybe need some work. And you wonder that if the great leaders really know and understand themselves, how can I learn and understand about myself to also be a great leader? So.
There's a really great McKinsey article out recently on the inside out leadership, and actually a whole bunch of CEOs in Fortune 500 companies that when they're suffering or struggling and the company's struggling, it's actually because the CEOs don't do a whole lot of self-reflection and understand themselves.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it happens at any level of leadership. We've got a fun episode coming up next, which will be in just a little while because we're every 2 weeks now. But we are going to offer a bit of our own opinions along the way in the next podcast, which I think will be really interesting rather than just asking the question. So who knows what that'll look like or what'll come up, but looking forward to catching you next time. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to the Career Boosters podcast. We hope you had a blast. Yeah, we know that's corny. Catch you next time, and remember to subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.